Good evening, Holliston, and welcome to, it's March 12th, welcome to the Holliston School Committee meeting. I will call things to order, and I think we'll get started with the consent agenda. I guess at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? That passes. We have no students in here tonight, so we will move on to school committee individual comments. Frank?
None for me.
Nothing for me.
I'll just go with the crowd. Nothing for me.
Oh, well, I'll say something. I just want to say thank you to Ann King and the team of educators in the Soar and Lift classrooms. I was invited to be the mystery chef last week, and we had a great afternoon with a wonderful bunch of students making pancakes. So that was a lot of fun, and it was really a pleasure to be welcomed in to work with all of them. They were really fun to work with, so thank you. I also wanted to say huge congratulations to the senior class for putting together a very entertaining senior showcase last night. It was really a lot of fun, a lot of great performances. There was storytelling, a challenging game of Jeopardy. Huge thank you to Mr. List, who was a hugely wonderful sport in the game of Jeopardy, which did include a run-in with a pie in his face. We're singing and great musicians, really great dancers. Also, special thank you to the patience and grace that the performers displayed as they worked through some technical difficulties. It was just a really fun night, and I want to say congratulations and a great way to celebrate the class of 2026. And that's all I have. Do we have anyone here for public comment? No. Okay. And I don't think there's anyone on the Zoom. So I think we can move right on to, is Dan here? Dan?
Dan McLeod. Back there in the corner.
He was just here.
No, they're back there. They're in the house.
Do you want to go, or? Got it. So we have a presentation on, that's okay, technology and the AI Steering Committee.
Yes. I have our awesome student, Jackson Coutone, joining for the presentation. He was part of our steering committee, so I'll let him, he has a piece in this presentation, so he'll be sharing shortly. So yeah, thanks for having me. Let me get started here. Can someone give me sharing? Please. Cool. I think we're ready to go.
You should be all set.
Okay, so tonight's technology presentation, happy to be here again in front of you. It's going to be strictly focused on AI. A lot of times I talk about cybersecurity and infrastructure, but this one, we have a lot to talk about, right, Jackson? So,
Yes.
we're going to dive right in. So as you know, I think in the fall when I spoke, we were planning to launch the AI Steering Committee. Dr. Menard was part of the steering committee. We had 4 90-minute meetings, and our initial work is complete, so that's what the topic of this presentation is, mostly what the committee came up with, next steps, recommendations, things like that. So the goal here was we were very happy. A big part of the presentation is also we were able to launch a professional development survey related strictly to AI. And we had an incredible number of responses, so I'll be sharing that as well. All right, let's head in here. All right, so last August, DESE released guidance for districts. So we wanted to be sure the committee aligned its work with the DESE guidance. So all of the work you'll see from the committee had the DESE guidance in mind. We want to make sure the professional development we deliver actually has impact. So you're going to hear some recommendations for PD from the committee. And finally, we had 23 members on the committee, a lot of parents, students, 4 6th graders like Jackson, incredible. And then we had 2 juniors. So we had a 6th grade, for whatever reason, is very interested in AI. So anyway, it was a great group of stakeholders. It was a group of 23. Dan Halford, you mentioned that's a big group to corral, and it was. So we didn't have 23 every single time, so good prediction there. But we had a steady number of 13 on average show up for each of the 4 meetings. All right, and naturally this presentation has a little AI infusion to it, so you're going to see some phrases that were enhanced with AI. So I put the sort of the committee's recommendations into AI, and AI came out with this phrase, and I looked at it and I said, blockade, that's a little aggressive. But really that's what we're doing in Holliston. We are blocking AI from students. I mean, I'm just going to be real about it, except for the high school where they use Notebook LM. Other than that, there's really no, we never had a good plan, and that's where the committee comes into this, for, maybe eventually turning on AI for students. There's a lot of reasons not to turn on AI for students yet. As you'll see shortly, 60% of students at the high school level are using AI anyway. So it's a little bit of a struggle for us. So blockade to blueprint is we're coming from that blockade era into hopefully a blueprint for success. It's been 2 years since ChatGPT, or actually our work started in Holliston, so you're going to see that shortly. So here's our timeline. I'm not going to read all of this, but just some general milestones. Our first steering committee was actually in November 2023. And so the second steering committee, which Jackson was part of, was November 2025. So a full 2 years later, we had to reconvene the steering committee, a different one. This one, the good news is the committee convened in November 2025, but prior to that, September 2025, we actually launched our first formal AI PD session at Miller Elementary. And we saw some impacts from that session as far as staff and their use of AI. And then January 2026, so these things were already happening in Holliston before the committee. Thanks to Joni and her curriculum folks, tech integration. So we launched another session at Robert Adams Middle. So those were 2 highlights I wanted to point out. The September 25, January 26 were formal PD sessions devoted to AI. The other 2 schools, again, Placentinos, we want teachers to become more efficient with AI. A lot of them in this survey reported that their efficiency, saving hours per week, is definitely a reason to use AI. Teachers, I'm talking about not students. So we're working on developing plans for the other 2 buildings. And then finally, March 2026, this came out of the committee, which you'll hear about shortly. We need to give a survey for staff to find out where they are with AI. All right, so that brings us to the steering committee. And so I'll have Jackson speak about this shortly, but basically it was 23 members, 3 subcommittees: curriculum, student literacy, staff literacy, and PD, and then guidance and AI concerns. The environmental impact of AI is a huge concern in Holliston. And there's some places that sort of addressed it, like University of Maine put out a tool where they compared an hour of Netflix to typing in a chatbot. And the hour of Netflix uses way more energy than typing in a chatbot. But that's just, there's a lot of push and pull with the environmental impacts. But I actually posed that to a junior here at the high school. I said, "You watch Netflix?" Because he was adamant, I'm not using AI because of the environmental impact. And I just showed him that Netflix is way more. So anyway, those were the stakeholders, 23 folks. We did build a website, and it has all the members linked up here. But I want to swing right into the role of our Jackson, who's joining me tonight. So just a little bit about Jackson. He was like a rock in the committee. He was there for all 4 meetings. He was there early, stayed late, even with his other commitments. Thanks to his mom and dad who brought him to the meetings. Just very committed. So super impressed with that. He also, I noticed, I wasn't part of the subcommittees. I was sort of facilitating, and he was actually sort of the leader of this guidance and AI concerns committee. He had his Chromebook out, was typing on the slide deck, taking notes. So I wanted him to have a moment, couple minutes to share sort of his experiences on the committee and talk about why you joined the committee, first of all. So first, introduce yourself.
I'm Jackson Catone. I'm in 6th grade, and I'm only 11, and I've had a lot of experience with AI before. So, and I know how it can impact the environment and you. Okay.
Yes. So can you talk a little bit about what your group, the sorts of discussions they had, the guidance and AI concerns?
Okay. So we were mostly focused on the concerns. We were worried about, first of all, the environmental impact, the student grade impact, and how they would respond to other things in life, like their creativity. For the guidance, we didn't want students cheating on tests or assignments using AI, though it could help teachers a lot, and it would help students to make stuff such as flashcards to study for their test. So we focused on that stuff a lot. Okay.
That's great. So yes, most of it was, we're at this point where it's really helping teachers, and even we had an administrator meeting yesterday, helping teachers and administrators become more efficient. But the survey really shocked us because we haven't done a ton of PD as you've seen, but teachers have sort of latched onto AI as this is a tool that's going to save me hours per week. So they don't necessarily need some of them don't need the formal PD. And you've seen the chatbots, right? They're pretty straightforward as far as what they can do. So you're going to stay with me, right?
Yes.
So I can survive this? So feel free to jump in, Jackson. You're going to see some graphs. He'll be one of the first committee members to see the results, so
Okay.
enjoy. So these are the 3 groups, and they just naturally came out from the actual committee of 23. We just decided to divide into 3 groups just to make the groups more efficient and targeted. This was a really cool recommendation that came out of the Curriculum Student Literacy Group, and we have not implemented this, at least district-wide, but it's a system where, and some districts use this, where students are given, again, if it's an assignment where they're allowed to use, or assignments are given a label, red, yellow, red, yellow, green, excuse me. Red means you're not allowed to use AI, and yellow is certain parts of that, like brainstorming, and then green, full AI, encouraged. Again, we're not here yet in Holliston, but this is a potential tool we could roll out once a school is ready to adopt for students. All right, here's some of the survey results, and I will the next slide will talk about the numbers. I know that's hard to see, but basically the teachers, the top bar there, I probably should go right to the next slide, but let me talk a little bit about the numbers. We had 167 staff respondents out of 207 staff, and that was an 81% clip, so thrilled about those results. Survey window was February, March 2026. And the key things we looked at were the grade levels that folks were teaching, the AI tools in use, and then adoption patterns. All right, here are some of the numbers that came out of that survey. So 31% of the teachers that responded, the top need was practical tools. They want a 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it takes, show me this new tool, and then let me explore with that tool. And that's where the 22% comes in, time for implementation. Dedicated PD days, that's going to be tricky to give a full day of AI PD, and actually that's probably not the best practice, but little chunks of AI seem to be the most effective as far as what teachers want. 21% of teachers, no AI use whatsoever. That was interesting as well. So about 80% appear to be using, and then there's 20, for whatever reasons, are not using it. There's definitely plagiarism concerns, AI detection tools, and then setting expectations for responsible student use. All right, this one surprised me personally. ChatGPT is clearly the leader in the clubhouse. 80% of the teachers that respond are using ChatGPT. And then Gemini, as we've talked about, is sort of Holliston's AI tool that we're embracing because of privacy. But if teachers don't put PII in any of these tools, it's not going to be. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what they're doing with these tools. But Gemini has claimed it's our own environment, so we're going to keep encouraging staff to use Gemini to keep all of the content within our environment. So again, this survey just came back. High school just finished Tuesday, I think. So the results are very fresh, and we have not acted on these yet. All right, these were two things that came out of, I don't think this was your group, right? This was a AI concern group. These two frameworks, the CPU rule is basically we want to help students understand AI cannot do the thinking for you. You need your brain to solve not just current problems, but the future problems. So that's going to be part of this framework we're going to show students once we do introduce it. And then the other piece is, I'm sure you've heard in the news, the deep fakes and how students are using this in poor ways to, social media, deep fakes, all of that. So we want to help students with all of that and not putting your full name, address, birthday, anything online. As a matter of fact, one student on the committee, I believe they were talking about how they were using chat in middle school, and I was like, it just didn't, we have to show students, I wouldn't show them chat, I would show them Gemini, but how to use it properly. So that's where even showing middle school students. I want to share one teacher success story. Jenny White is a first-year teacher at Miller, and she's absolutely, she was a leader on the steering committee, one of the subgroups. I believe that was yours, right?
Yep.
So the Guidance Concerns Committee, but she is innovating with AI every day. So I just threw in a quote here. Yesterday she used it to look at her rubrics. It helped me visualize areas of growth and pinpoint areas for targeted instruction. And it's such a great tool. So that's, again, an example of teachers using AI. And actually she has a whole workflow for exporting de-identified student work and then importing it into AI and then having the AI help determine targeted areas for growth. Saves hours. And she and Allie Curley are presenting this model at Medfield, has a digital learning day, which is for Massachusetts districts. And so their proposal was accepted. So Jenny and Allie are presenting that as an exemplar. So, where do we go next? Scaling PD. One thing that came out of the committee was the ethics and classroom integration module. So whatever we do with PD, there has to be some ethics training surrounding it. We need to finalize our AI toolbox. As you saw, chat was hugely popular. It's even popular with some administrators, so that's going to be definitely a targeted area. How do we handle the popularity of ChatGPT? And then a tool so Gamma was the AI tool used to help with this presentation. So adopt these other tools that we think will save folks time and put them in our toolbox. Guidance rollout. The committee came up with guidance, which I'll show some examples here shortly of how they want to revise our current guidance. And then the measurement is going to be how we track staff use, again, continuing these surveys. And then I'm a big believer in having dialogue with teachers. How are they using these tools in the classroom, like the example I gave with Jenny White. All right, so district leadership. We met yesterday. One thing that we need to do, again, the survey is hot off the press, is review this survey data, allocate PD as needed, and the district needs to revise the guidance. As you know, 4 of our 9 senior leadership positions are going to be turning over, 26, 27. So we're in a tricky spot with, doing anything drastic right now with that much changing. So, but the data is now here that we can make decisions. The district leadership also, we're going to form a community of practice. We launched this yesterday, and that's where what administrators have told us is they missed the PD sessions, for example, that Miller and Rams were delivering on AI. So the administrators are not getting the AI PD that they need. So we're going to form a community of practice. It's going to be an hour a month where administrators can join optionally, and we're going to share best practices, learn new AI tools like Gamma, and then spend 30 minutes exploring that tool. All right, school committee. Where can we use your help? Basically, the committee's recommendations, we need your endorsement, ask questions, whatever you need to do. We're going to take it back to the committee. We're going to probably update the AI guidance. Again, we're waiting for sort of the change in senior leadership, and that will help signal your commitment to our work. And then ultimately, the goal is everybody, staff and students, we have to be safe about AI. It's not perfect. It needs human interaction. And then academic integrity is the hump that we can't overcome right now. That's why it's a very limited use for students, even though we know students are using it outside of our school district. Questions?
That was very comprehensive.
Thank you. Had a lot of help.
Can I ask Jackson a question?
Sure.
Jackson, can you tell me, because I am not an AI user, and I probably think I could learn best from people your age, since it's more natural for you. How did you get started on this, and what do you use it the most for? Schoolwork, homework, just things on your own?
First of all, I use AI mostly just for facts or stuff I'm wondering about at home. Or I use it when I'm practicing, say, math to check my answers. I don't think I've really ever used it for any school assignments, projects, or tests before. So I've only used it for educational purposes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
He's doing it the right way.
I have a question, probably for Jackson too. How do we encourage, I'm a big believer in AI when used in the right way. Any tool could be misused. And that the computers probably started that, right? Like how we started using computers and we all found out ways to use it in different ways. How do we encourage students like you to others to use it positively?
That's gonna be tough. I know that some students have found a way around Deladeo, which is the blocking site that they use. But I think if it set like a guidelines that's posted throughout the school and that's maybe even on the website, and just for like how students misbehave, I wouldn't exactly call it a punishment, but maybe someone should like remind them.
General enforcement.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I think blocking it will cause more nefarious ways than allowing positive access.
Yeah.
And then enforcement governance is super important with it. Awesome work, Jackson, by the way.
Thank you.
So again, all the committees, we actually launched the website tonight, so I'll probably put it at the bottom of my email and things, so check it out. It's going to be on the main technology page. You can see the work of the committee, all the recommendations, all the members, and then again, we'll wait for sort of our leadership to check it out and see what we do next.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Jackson. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. McLeod.
Let's go.
Okay, so we can move on to the updated superintendent's budget.
All right, so we have an updated presentation for the FY27 proposed budget. So I was going to put the slides up. You'll see some of our previous, previous slides that we've shared. And then you'll see that we have updated some information to hopefully be able to get to a point of voting for a budget that would go to town meeting. All right, so the updates tonight will show, this is the original, you'll see here, January 8th. This was presented after we presented, mostly Dr. Jordan, presented the three different parts to the budget, the salaries, other fixed costs, and student services. At January 8th, at that point, we were at a 4.98%. And you can see the number at the bottom. That would get us to the 4.98%, which is above what we can manage for this fiscal year. However, we really worked hard, Dr. Jordan in particular, and he's happy to answer questions about it, but we had an unusual year where we had some retirements. We knew some of the retirements were going to be coming this end of the year, but at the same time, we had a number of retirements mid-year that we weren't foreseeing in various departments, and some resignations and other favorable payroll. So that actually was able to get him to a number of reducing that to negative 483,593. And again, so taking that into consideration, Dr. Jordan then updated this information on the chart that he presented with us on February 9th, and that brought our number down to 3.89%, so getting closer to where we would like to be. And obviously, this is something that's been modeled, as I shared in multiple meetings from the town. So I left that slide in. We know that we were asked at Budget Sub and also the town manager, money is tight in all towns, and certainly ours is no stranger to that. We're hearing lots of challenges in many districts. We're not in dire straits like many districts, but at the same token, we have needs for our students that we need to address. So the 3.25% is a challenge to get to. But if we stayed at the 3.89, we're still, 0.64 off, and that's about 286,000. So we kept working to the number, and as the closer we get to knowing real information about students, any tuition, unforeseen costs, and things like that, as we get more out-of-district costs from districts, from collaboratives and places, it helps us to get a better sense of what the real number is going to be as we move forward. However, at this point, the only way we can get to 3.25% does require a reduction of 3.0 FTEs. And every year we do this, regardless of the budget, we look at enrollment shifts, and sometimes if we're not able to, if we don't need a particular position anymore because of the enrollment, we've actually sometimes switched it to something that we had more of a need of. But in this case, this retirement at elementary would be a 1.0 come out of the budget to reduce that number. And then this is all discussed with our leadership team. For me, it's really important that the people that are going to be here next year, as Mr. McLeod alluded to, have the voice in this. They've always had the voice in the process. We never do this in isolation. We always meet as a leadership team. But this came from the leadership team coming together, principals and central office, and really hearing their voices as what we could manage for next year. So with that, 2 secondary positions will be eliminated based on, also, we've had a lot of enrollment, but we also didn't want to cut into, the high school did not want to cut into the classroom positions for obvious reasons with the new schedule. So these particular positions would be positions that are not directly instructing kids in the same way as the classroom positions. However, there's always some impact there. And because this was not something that we expected, the 2 individuals that would be potentially impacted by this were already notified that this was likely the direction that would be happening. And that those 3 positions would get us to approximately that 286,000 number that would get us down to the 3.25%. So that was the challenge that we were up against. So you can see, again, Dr. Jordan updated this for today's meeting, and you can see where that changes the salaries and gets us to the 3.25% again. That does not still take into account any of the priority needs, and if you recall, when we presented in January, prior to any discussion with all of you at the back of this library, we met again multiple times. What Dr. Jordan and the central team, Dr. Menard, we meet with each department as we go through the budget process, and we then met with each principal, and we really talked about what they needed to come in with. We knew it was going to be a year that we were going to have a challenge to get to that 3.25%. We asked them to not put needs on there that they couldn't come up with a solution, and obviously if money weren't an object, there were definitely other needs, but they came up with their bare bones needs, and this is much less than we've probably seen in a long time that we put on this list because we were being very targeted with this, and that was 158,000. Again, it's not a large number, but it's above that 3.25. So what do we do about that? So again, from meetings with Budget Subcommittee and obviously knowing where we are with the fiscal challenges, we all met as a team again. Multiple times we meet with our principals in central office and they meet with their building-based teams. And we agreed as a team that the number one priority need, if there's only one thing that could be filled, is that .5 SSA out-of-district coordinator, which is about $60,000. Now, for years, those of you that have been here have heard every year this being presented. This predates me even, and then Kelly Camp was here when I arrived. We really ultimately do need a 1.0 assistant director role, and we were trying to hopefully get there, but knowing the challenges, at least to have a half-time position that's fully dedicated to these out-of-district positions, because our students that go out, as we know, can be very costly, and right now we have our SSAs, 5 of them, at the different buildings. We have a half-time and 4 full-time, as well as the student services director, are literally all doing pieces of this. It's pulling them out of the building, which will make them inefficient and could be costly at team meetings. When they go out to another meeting, they might be missing something important that should be happening at the building level, and unforeseen costs come out of that. And then just having it piecemeal, it's been very challenging to try to get to these district meetings and being very strategic with the information we share there. And there have been some unforeseen costs that got away from us because of the fact that obviously if we can find a placement of $100,000 rather than $200,000, but having too many kettles in the pots in the burner, you're honestly costing us money this way. And this is something that all districts struggle with, but most districts have added these positions long before this. So we're behind, and we're trying to get some of these gaps met. And certainly Dr. Cataldo or Dr. Jordan could speak to that as well. Oh, let me just go back, and that number for just that one, 60,000, would get us to 3.39% for the request. What about the other needs? So you can see those, again, these are the bare bones needs. We did not put any fluff in here. We put really the basics, and we do always try to be mindful of trying to, when there are enrollment shifts, if we can shift things over to things that we need for the current or the upcoming year, tied to our strategic plan. We've always done that. But if we put all of those needs forward, we're at 3.61% for the budget that we would be requesting from the town at town meeting. And obviously that's, above that number that we are, it's hoped that we would get to at the town level, but I really do think that these needs are really important, and our administrators were really not being, they were not looking for anything that is not directly needed to support students. And if you can see those needs, we're talking about our diverse learning population out of district that's directly servicing our most challenged students in many cases. And then the tutors for ESL, again, are students that are students of color or multiple languages. And then, again, literacy. We know how important that is. And as we learned this past year, we were able to add 1.0 math tutor at the middle school. Our math is going up, and it's really been phenomenal, the amount of students that can be get interventions between the full-time teacher and now the full-time math tutor. We don't have that model for reading. That is really critical if we want to get some of those interventions in place. It's a gap for our students that are struggling. And then the campus supervisor, that's the role that would be very similar to what the high school has. We, again, middle school kids need a little bit monitoring in different ways than our elementary kids, and it's very time consuming to try to manage all that in the hallways. We have cameras, we can prevent some things. The amount of time, and this is at 3 of the buildings, we're spending a ton of time in the lunchroom for our administrators, and that's taking away from all the other things they need to do, evaluations. Things do fall through the cracks when they don't have enough time to manage things. This is a long overdue position that's been requested, and I'd say, David, many other ways, but some form of this, so that although it's number 3, it's also a very critical need at the middle school as well. Right now, our capital requests have not changed since the last time we met. If you look at our initial request was at $3,335,000, but we went back and took a few things off of our initial priority needs request with capital. We took $95,000 off, so we're currently at the $3,240,000. However, that does include the MSB feasibility study, which has already been voted on right now to at least propose moving that forward at town meeting. So at this point, we're looking for the difference from that, which is the 740,000, right? Okay. If you can see the curriculum resources, it's very hard to prioritize these, but the grant that Joni got that she'd be happy to talk about, Dr. Menard, we have that wonderful grant, 90,000, Joan?
No, it's over 200.
Oh, right. Some of it was for
243,000.
resources, some of it was for training. So part of the expectation is that they're piloting these resources, and then we have to purchase them. So that's directly tied to the grant at $275,000, which is critical because we already got that money, and I don't know if they would take it back. I mean, that would be what
They would take it
They would
back.
be expecting it back if we can't follow through and tell them what we spent on our own. And then another seriously critical need really is that maintenance truck, just because of the age, and our maintenance person is highly visible, very active. He's been an incredible hire, and he's driving it around in probably something that's becoming unsafe, would you say, Dr. Jordan, at this point?
Publicly, yeah.
Well, we got to be honest, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So that would be the request for capital. So, I do want to acknowledge the work that goes into this. It doesn't seem like a lot, but I don't know how many meetings, Dr. Jordan, would you say we've had to get to this point? We really take it seriously. We're not frivolous in any way. Each year, I feel like we've requested less and less priority-wise, and we really have reduced any time we could strategically based on enrollment. We've aligned all of our PD, all of our budget process. We've aligned all of the work that we're doing to that 5-year strategic plan, and we tell you what arches you see in my presentation, the arches are there. So it's directly tied to the work that we agreed to do for the 5 years. And then next year will be the last year of that. And as you develop a new strategic plan with the new leadership team, you will then want to kind of keep moving forward with kind of prioritizing based on your 5-year or 3-year plan, whatever you decide at that time. So we're here to answer any questions. And actually, Mr. McLeod is here if there's anything technology-wise that you had a question about as well. Well, he's still here.
The positions that were cut at the high school level, are they like SEL support positions? Are you able to give any more clarity on what type? I know they weren't classroom teachers, but they're still full-time educators. Or
At this time,
okay.
I think I'd rather not, just for their sake at the moment, because it'd be very identifiable.
Okay.
And I just want to give that respect to them, if that's okay. But a little later in the process, we'll be discussing them.
But just so everyone is clear, and Dr. Chris said it, but I want to just reiterate so that no one is concerned. The individuals there have been conversations with the individuals that will be impacted, so no one has talked to you that it's not you.
Right, if you have not had a conversation.
I don't mean to laugh, I just mean like,
There's nothing to worry about at this point. We are obviously pending any other budgetary changes, right? There's always unforeseen things that can happen, but right now this is where we're looking.
The other reason not is that, for some reason, that we get tons of extra money, but, so, it's unlikely.
Honey doesn't grow on trees.
It actually is trees, but,
And we're not hearing good news at the state level. We had our legislative breakfast, was it just last week, Joni? And Dr. Jordan went, Sarah went, Dr. Menard and I, and, it's not always a fun meeting regardless, but this year it's just that much more uncertain with the changes happening at the federal level. There's an impact to the state level even more than ever. So, we don't know the impact of that yet, but that's something we'll, watch very closely as well.
I think the challenging part with that is they're not giving any information because they don't know. And that's the challenging part. If, it's a bad situation, okay, then we can plan towards it. Or maybe it's a positive situation, we can obviously celebrate a bit. But not knowing is kind of, and then it's no fault to the state leaders and our local leaders. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
And on Monday, Sarah, Frank, and I attended the select board meeting where Senate President Spilka and our Representative James Arena DeRosa presented to the select board, and I have not heard Senator Spilka be as sort of concerned as she was about the state's budget, and that concern and uncertainty obviously leads to difficulties when doing budgeting, as we know on a more micro level here. So in the past few years, the Senate and House have been able to get the town more money than that was in the governor's budget for Chapter 70, and then some additional circuit breaker. There certainly was no commitment, not that there ever would have been a commitment, but it was definitely like, we're just trying to sort of keep our head above water as we deal with all these unknown costs. So.
And I'd also like to add, too, if you look back, obviously, since I've been here 6 years, Dr. Jordan's been here forever.
14.
Well, now you're taking over because Mr. Madey's gone, and Mr. Kime will be gone, when you're one of the longest tenure. But with that, we've been very fiscally conservative here. I mean, you're not hearing the doom and gloom that we're hearing in many, many, many towns. Just meeting with my colleagues the other day at the legislative meetings and other meetings I've been at, there's some districts making significant cuts, and they will continue with many hands. And I can name dozens of districts right now that are really struggling. So we've been very careful. We didn't over-plan positions that we needed during COVID with all those funds that we got, the one-time funds. We used that to free up to get free time, the kindergarten full day paid, and then was it getting into the budget. So that's why you're not seeing us with a significant number of reductions, because we knew that money would run out. So, again, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because honestly, we're not in dire straits, but we do have to be very conservative, continue to be that, and mindful of, the needs of the district, because we want to still continue to be a strong performing district.
Yeah, I've been, in the duration that I've been here, and just kind of reiterating what Dr. Kuska said, is Holliston does have a strong history of running conservative budgets, just as a town, but as a school system, where your highs aren't too highs, your lows aren't too lows, and that's kind of where we are. And as Dr. Kuska said, we're not looking at the massive cuts they're seeing at some of our neighboring communities, and some of the other funds. We have the space and the ability to kind of stay flexible as others are in more inflexible positions than we are.
So I don't know how you want to handle it. If we have 3 recommendations from Budget Sub, we can do it where it is on the agenda. We could do it now.
We can do it now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I guess just first of all, not most importantly, but one of the important things, when we did the override 2 years ago, we made a pledge to the community that we would, meet the 3.25% each year for level services, and so this budget does that. While the specifics of how we got here, we're not sort of we're not planned, obviously, sort of the need for changes in needs in the district, we're certainly anticipated with enrollment shifts. So nothing here is sort of was overly different than sort of what I was thinking it would end up being, how we would get to the 3.25%. That said, at Budget Sub, we did support the 3.61% budget, inclusive of the priority needs. We discussed potentially just doing 1 or 2 of them, but we think that we were really conservative, or the administration was really conservative in what they asked for. So we are going to go forward with the 3.61% as a recommendation, and we'll see where we get with the town and see if there's any favorability there. I know the town manager was able to balance the budget, and that's before any potential increases in Chapter 70, any potential increases in circuit breaker. Some favorability here or there, and a few unknown numbers could shake loose a few extra dollars that we could, try to request. So, with the permission of the chair, our budget recommendation is $45,972,162. And if you we could debate it, or if people are comfortable with that, but that is 3.61%, but in a 3.25% level service.
Sorry.
We should vote on that to adopt that as our.
Entertain a motion to adopt the 3.61% probably not going to get the words right.
$45,972,162 is the school committee's requested budget. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? That passes.
Then we also voted, Dr. Jordan had done a lot of work on the MSBA feasibility study cost in conjunction with discussions with the town manager and James Keast, our facility director, and their sort of joint consensus is that we should request $2.5 million for the feasibility study. It's well, Dr. Jordan can talk more about it, but I guess, the MSBA does not really help you sort of look for comps, but don't really guide you into what they think it should cost. And so you're trying to sort of guesstimate it based on where other people are coming in, and we're starting to even see some districts that are even higher than this for buildings that are roughly similar costs. So there was at one point thought that it would be even lower, though I remember like 10 years ago people were talking about $1 million for these things. So I don't know if you want to go into any more detail, but
Yeah, I mean, we even since we learned that we had been accepted into the eligibility period, the comps that we had received were about a year old on the comps that we're receiving for feasibility studies, and we saw anywhere from 1.7 to 2.5 million. Now we're starting to see the kind of October, November, December, those feasibility study numbers start to come in, the current ones, and you're seeing $2.53 million for those comps for similar sized buildings. So we still feel very confident about the $2.5 million, but I do think that it's the belief of James and I that now is the time, I think, to really push and make the feasibility study start, because I think that we're already noticing that these costs are exponentially growing every 6 months.
so I've talked with the chair of the finance committee, about having the resources for this, and obviously a firm commitment wasn't made. He did imply that he thought the number was achievable, and he thought that this was a reasonable number when we talked earlier this evening. He did say no to $3 million, but and then we're also right now anyway. They really haven't started the capital process for May, but right now we also voted to support the $740,000 for other capital requests, recognizing that the $275,000 for K through 5 ELA is a priority because it is sort of tied to that grant. The grant does not impact the 275 directly, but it kind of comes part and parcel. So we voted to recommend the $2.5 million for the MSBA feasibility study and $740,000 for the capital request as laid out in the presentation.
Do we need a vote on that as well?
I would do 2 votes.
2 votes. So one for the feasibility study.
Yep. So I'd make a motion to request $2.5 million as part of our warrant article for the MSBA feasibility study.
Second.
All in favor? That passes.
And I would just say for anyone watching, it's going to be very important to show up at town meeting to support this, assuming you support it. If you don't support it, stay home. But it is important that, the MSBA does watch to see sort of the support from the town, so the more people to show up and voice their support for this is very important. So we'll communicate more, I think, with the with the district and the community as we go forward. But May 11th is town meeting, and so we encourage everybody who supports this to show up.
And this all kind of blurs, but more information will be shared out. We'll share it during the MSBA update, but more information will be shared on what the feasibility study is, so people understand it, can get comfortable with it, so everyone will know where to.
Dr. Jordan is working on a presentation.
A presentation too.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it's a ton of money for like a visa for a study, and so what are we buying?
Yeah.
And
so next, I am in the early stages of preparing a presentation for next school committee meeting, March 26th, also for the budget hearing, of what a community-facing presentation of like what a feasibility study is for you all.
And these are, you can search online, I mean, these are things that are hundreds of pages long. I mean, one of them was even 2,000 pages long. Granted, there's some attachments and stuff, but these are, a lot of work goes into them.
It's an opportunity to use AI to summarize.
Right?
I think that would probably just make it cheaper for them, but the same cost for us. So there you
Did
go.
we need,
Dan McLeod is over there, and
Right.
his slides are looking familiar to mine. I wonder what resource I need to use.
I'm assuming we don't pay for Gamma. That's why it has the made by Gamma tag on each slide.
Right now, yeah.
so, and then entertain a motion for the 740,
40,000.
40,000 capital request
That's
for everything else.
For everything else, yes. So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? That passes as well.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions on budget?
I will send the PDF to acting town manager Cheryl Houle and town manager Frank.
Great.
So that they have those numbers, and they, obviously you'll follow up with them as well.
Okay. I think we can move on to policy.
So we're revisiting JLCA, which is a physical examination of students. We looked at this in January, not too long ago. We looked at it in January just as a reminder because there were some updated recommendations from the Department of Health. But since then, we've had an opportunity to meet with Kim Marsden, who had some additional recommendations to make sure this aligns with our district practices as well. So the changes here are more removing some language. So in the first paragraph, just for a little more clarity, we changed in the law and regulation to by the Department of Public Health. In the second paragraph, we added that a record of all examinations and recommendations will be kept in each school's health office. In the next paragraph, we added some language about physicals. So it says every candidate for a school athletic team will present the signed consent of their parent or guardian to participate on a squad, and will, with the signed consent of a parent or guardian, be thoroughly examined to determine physical fitness by a physician, and will provide a copy of an annual physical or sports physical. And then the subsequent language there around school physician, we're removing. Because the district doesn't, like most districts, does not have a school physician. So even though that's Department of Health recommended language for a policy, like most districts, we're going with the annual physical as proof of or ability to participate. And then in the next, there's some language or minor changes to language. Whenever the school nurse finds a child suffering from any medical problem, the situation will be reported to the parent or guardian by phone or in writing at the nurse's discretion. The school nurse will make a monthly report to the state and available to the superintendent. And those are the changes. Any questions?
Good.
Do we need to vote to approve the changes? I think so. I always get confused
Yes.
about this, so.
Yes, you can move those changes.
Okay.
yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the changes as outlined by Hillary.
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, okay, sorry, second. Sorry. Tracy will second it, and we'll say all in favor. That passes. Great. Sorry about that. Okay, we can move on to central office updates. Susan?
Yes, I think Mr. McLeod already mentioned that we had our full admin meeting, our monthly check-in yesterday, and we did start talking with them about this Gamma. That was one of the presentations that was done yesterday, we are all trying to lean in to AI in the positive ways, but making it our own, and also making sure that we're using it appropriately as administrators. And it's an interesting place to be in time, but it can be exciting, and it has become a very useful tool if we're using it as administrators. We're really putting our own input in there. I mean, you can take a PDF that you've done of something and pop it in there and say, please make this whatever, and it will pop up, So the amount of, to Mr. McLeod's point, I think as a leadership team, we're really trying to also get a little more proficient at this, because and keeping up with it is a lot. So, remains to be seen how many of us get more proficient with that. And I know that the changes we've talked about with the PD day, so we definitely are. We took the March 10th day. Obviously, that was a day for students and staff. And then the April 3rd day will be the full day PD for staff, for teachers, not for paras. We may have a few paras coming in that day, but it's primarily the teacher PD day going into that weekend for Easter. And I don't think we have any other changes. I know you're going to be discussing the calendar further, but at least knowing that those changes have happened. And hopefully, I did not look at student attendance on Tuesday, so I'm not really sure how that went. And hopefully, it was well attended for the day.
I was happy to attend the legislative breakfast with Chair Fitzgerald, Superintendent, and Assistant Superintendent. I wanted to thank all our local reps for supporting Holliston and fighting the good fight to get us more funds. Mathapalooza was a phenomenal event. We had, I know, over 600. I did not get the final count, but it was over 600 that night, that first count. A huge shout out to Ashley Bouchard and Kristen Marino, who really organized all of that. Wanted to thank all the staff that volunteered in the stations, as well as we had a lot of high school volunteers, a lot of Leo volunteers, as well as our book fair volunteers. And I had the pleasure of running the penny polish station. So I smelled like ketchup and vinegar for quite a few days, which is all good. As Dr. Kuska talked about, we are in the throes of planning, or I should say replanning, our professional development day. I attended the leadership meetings for both Placentino and Miller today, so plans are on the way, and we continue our curriculum reviews. I invited Director McLeod to come up. He and I had the pleasure of co-facilitating the Miller principal search, but I thought he could give an update on that.
Sure. And I know Tracy was on the committee, so we spent a lot of time. So just a quick update, we have been sharing the survey data with Dr. Carter, and the survey just closed yesterday at noon for staff, students, not students, but staff in the community. So that's been shared with Dr. Carter. He acknowledged receipt of that, and I'm sure he's going through that data. And then he requested reference checks on the 2 finalists, and so we've delivered that data to Dr. Carter as well. So we expect a decision, in the coming days. Is about all I can share. So very soon.
So when the decision was made, will it be just emailed to the community?
Dr. Menard and I were talking about that today. So
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your
How
question.
will it be communicated?
I think they probably want to ask.
That's a Dr. Carter
Yes.
question.
He might want to write it and get sent out by email.
So usually when we are charged with facilitating a search committee, we become out of the mix when it gets to this point, because the charge is to bring forth candidates for a superintendent to review and select. So that would be a Dr. Carter call on that.
yes, we fully expect to send it out via Bright Arrow, which obviously he has not been trained on Bright Arrow. So I fully expect some sort of message to come from him. And,
Yeah. We're not waiting for the next school committee meeting.
No.
Or
Sure.
next other sort of thing. We're just
yeah.
moving that
Yeah.
out.
Like I said, I expect it very shortly, based on everything that we've provided. So.
Can I add one thing before Dr. Jody goes? I did want to mention something new, hot off the presses, that we found out about today. Jody Renee Harrington went to a training yesterday. I'm not going to remember the name. If you remember it, Education something.
Education to Career.
Education Career Hub. So Literally, she took the training with the Department of Education yesterday. It was a free training. I didn't even know about this. So today, we happen to be having our central office data meeting, and we try to talk about any data that we want to bring forward. And we kind of put her on the spot and asked her to present some of that and what it looks like. What I think you'll all be excited about is this is a tool that can be used by the public. You know how we've talked about trying to have something for you? So it's the same data in some cases that's already in DESE, but you probably heard about it, right? So, Hillary, I know you probably could teach us how to use it already, no? Not yet? Not yet. So it's obviously very new. But we did play with it today. Jody was showing it to us. I think you'll find it very useful as the community members about all the different graphs and things you can make to, understand that data yourselves. But if you'd like, if and when Mr. McLeod and Jody Renee do feel more comfortable, we'd be happy to do a presentation in lieu of our regular data presentation. That might be one that we could actually do some practicing and showing you what it can do here. So let me know if that's something you want to go and put on another agenda.
Great, thank you.
In your folder is kind of a more truncated summary version of what we share with the budget sub, which is kind of a budget memo budget summary up to March. We are kind of a total budget utilization at about 62% of our total budget used. And then kind of where we are in the year, we're about 69% through the year. So kind of reading into that as our budget's in a good spot where we should be. As I talked about as far as our grant use, grants are typically reimburse expenses that you've already accrued. So like you spend pretty much the majority of the year eating those expenses into your appropriated budget, and then you start accessing and drawing down the grant funds from GEMS, which is the state system, and those start to hit our accounts. So we do have, you see in italics, if you're in there, there's we use about a $5.5 million are set aside for as an offset, which Dr. Cataldo and I were meeting earlier today during our budget meeting. About slightly over $4 million of that is circuit breaker and 240, and that is pretty much exclusively used for tuition to offset tuition expenses that we have. The remainder, and I was just signing off some updates, are kind of our entitlement grants, and then some of the other grants that we have as a district. So that will start to shift. That number will start, the offset number will start to look a little different as we start to kind of access and draw down those expenses. Oh, lastly is we did our bid walkthrough for the flag field project. So we have a record number of different companies interested in bidding on the flag field project. We hope that means that will get some really competitive cost value bids for us, and that will really kind of be able to kind of transform that space. This bid, the project encompasses not only the revitalization or re-envisioning of the flag field and where the flag school used to be, but also the current access road that we're using and kind of really turning that into a legitimate road for driving on, including some increased parking spaces, some sidewalk repair on the Placentino Miller campus, and some additional paving of the parking lots on the Placentino Miller campus as well.
I never know which one to speak out into. Sorry. So I was away for a large chunk, as you know. I'm back from New Zealand and ready to jump in. Today I had the good fortune of being invited to work with the New Teachers Institute with Dr. Menard. She had me come and speak with the brand new teachers who are not brand new anymore. It's now March. And it was interesting to see them because I saw them back in September and then to come and make a comparison. They were so much more relaxed and they were able to make jokes, and really it was great to work with them. My presentation today was working with paraprofessionals in your classroom We talked about the different needs that a paraprofessional might be invited into a classroom for. I gave them 3 articles to read. We also talked about what's going on with paraprofessionals now and some of the experiences they've had, all really, really positive opportunities across the district. So I wanted to share that because that was great, and we sent everybody off to read their articles, but very boisterous, very chatty, which they weren't in September. They were very subdued back then. So that was very nice. We're continuing to work on ESY. We're coming closer to our numbers. It does look like we will not have as many students attending, but I don't have a specific number yet. But we are working towards making sure we're asking children to come who really will demonstrate regression. My true belief as a parent and as an educator is when school does break, we want children to be able to get out and see their peers and go to camp and do vacations and ride their bike and swim in a pool or jump in a sprinkler. And so if at all possible, we'd rather have the children out for the summer and having opportunities that are different from what they get at school. But we do have a cohort of students who require additional support to prevent regression in the fall. And so now we're down to organizing more specifically what the children's needs are and who we need to hire. We've begun looking at those numbers, and I'll be able to report back to you later. We had a CPAC meeting on Tuesday. I wasn't able to go. I know, Hillary, you weren't able to go.
I was there.
You went? Okay. Could you report, would you mind?
It was a pretty brief meeting. I think one of the big questions was around, excuse me, the unified arts, not unified arts.
Unified basketball.
Yes, the unified sports and some of the personnel, whether or not volunteers were able to run those roles, or if it had to be a staff member that was allowed, if it was run like a club versus a team. And then they had looked at some of the grant funding and some of their money, what they've been dealing with. But it was actually a pretty brief meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know next month we'll be meeting again, but also next month on April 28th, right after we get back from the vacation. I know it's a ways off, but that is our Special Olympics in Medway. And that will just be 1 year away from the Special Olympics being right here in Holliston. So please be prepared. If you want to come to Medway and have the opportunity to see what it looks like in the, knowing they're coming back here. I've already notified Jeff Speedy that it's going to be here, and we will catch up on that, as well as we're beginning to catch up on some things for the transition. So we've already begun that. And I believe that is it this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on to reports from subcommittees. Communications?
Communications has not met since, but I was working I will text you guys. We're going to set up a meeting with Chris Mayo and Dan to talk about the website for the MSBA's just process. Started with the feasibility study. This will be the avenue to share information. It likely will be a town page. We were talking with Tina this week, which makes sense, but link it back to the school page so that we get as much visibility as possible. And it's saying the same thing. If we have 2 pages, it could get disconnected. So we'll have a meeting on that, probably as guest attendees. So look for an email to come out about that before next school committee meeting. And otherwise, there is the office hours at March 21st. I'm going off the cuff here. At 2 p.m. at Rushford. It's a Saturday, I believe. 22nd, sorry. 22nd? 21st. Okay. 21st. Okay. Yes. 21st then at Rushford, 2 p.m.
Policy?
Nothing else for policy?
Yeah. Budget?
We met a bunch of times, but we updated you.
Yes. And then Superintendent Uval?
No.
We're good?
No.
Okay. So under old business, I had Miller Principal Search update, but I don't know if you just provided. I don't think there's anything else to add at this point. MSBA update. Do you want to?
It's on the closed warrant.
It's on the closed warrant for the Maytown meeting. Dan, Frank, and I were at the select board meeting. They talked a little bit about that, so that was great. I know.
Since last school committee, Hillary and I met with Tina as part of the working group. That's where we came together, aligned on May and the language and sharing that with the back with the MSBA, which I think is in process now. the other thing we discussed, we're starting to work through how we're going to think through the process to set up the school building committee. So I think that would be a topic of discussion in our next meeting this Tuesday, upcoming Tuesday. Yeah, no, I think the working group has been working very productively thus far to get these things off the ground, but obviously, as the community's aware, this is the, what do you say, the foundation, but the pillar in which, as it leads into the school building committee once it's formed, to take from here. So it's kind of an interim period before that committee is built. We are shooting for, by the start of the MSBA feasibility study, which is June 1st, to have school building committee at least partially up and running. And that what that means is there's some required roles that are on the committee. So take it. Hillary, you probably know the roles specifically.
I do not remember that off the top of my head. It is, yeah, there's specific designated roles.
Superintendent, like,
Yeah.
yeah. We won't go through all of them, but we can provide those, obviously. Select board having a vote on those roles to start, and then there are a number, actually at our discretion, a number of at-large roles that we'll be discussing as part of the working group this week. So we should have more information by next school committee meeting on that. So I think things are moving forward positively in this process thus far.
It's important to note, though, that the warrant article empowers the school building committee to essentially spend the feasibility study money. So we need this school building committee.
Our goal, and again, this needs to be a thoughtful process and make sure we work collectively with the other organizations, the town, is to have the school building committee set up by the feasibility start, especially with the feedback from MSBA on having a head start there. I think was kind of a nudge to say, let's get this ball rolling. We just want to think through it. We want to think through it enough, and someone said this week, we want to move fast. It was Damon, actually. We want to move fast, but thoughtfully. I think that's was the words, and I align with that.
Sooner the better.
Yeah.
Sooner the better, yes.
Yeah, especially with the people that are kind of already, by definition, need to be on
Yes,
it.
and that
Probably get
that's no
some of those
question.
named.
So some vote from.
I
we
mean,
did ask.
there can be phased-in votes, I would imagine,
We did ask the
start
school,
with these.
yes, the select board to plan for a vote for those, and Tina had said that she was in support of that. I think it has to be brought to agenda, obviously, and discussed, but I don't think we'll have much of a
Ben
problem.
said that possibly he didn't want to do it on the 9th, but possibly
Fair.
on the 23rd, so.
Yeah, just to signal we're moving the process, and I think by the 23rd, our goal would be to have a perspective on how we're going to start thinking about the at-large members.
I would just say, having kind of like talked to folks at the start, by the start of the eligibility people period, you may want at least the people that are kind of required to be on there having kind of had some preliminary conversations of what kind of examples, so that whenever we're going into that first meeting, those folks, especially those who are kind of employed by the town of Holliston, have things for the group so they can kind of hit that ball rolling.
Totally agree. That's why having those voted on, selected, and identified, even though they are mandatory, they can start working together.
Sounds good. Anything else? No. Okay, so.
Reserved comment.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so moving on to the next item, 26-27, school calendar. Apologize to the community for taking our time with this one. It's been a challenge. But we have a calendar drafted that I think we can move forward with.
Yeah, so the calendar we're looking at is the one with the PD day moved from September 11th to September 25th, which is after the first day for teachers that we previously approved months ago, it feels like now.
Yes.
And then retaining the half day for students.
On the 26th,
On the
the first
26th.
day.
So the
yeah.
first day of students would be the 26th, but it would remain a half day. So I'll make a motion to set the calendar with the PD day on the 25th of August and the first day of students as being the 26th as a half day.
So moved. Second. Is it someone who said?
Only if the chair make, if I make the motion, that's the motion, then you second it.
So joking. Sorry.
All in favor? Okay. Any other discussion on that?
I just think that we, again, I will commit, and I think we, others can voice their decisions, but to look at the calendar more holistically for the following year, I think, over the next 6
following years, potentially.
baby steps. Let's get to. But there are a lot of moving pieces and different ideas to look at, and I don't think we've ever really polled the community holistically on everything. We've done pieces, but not really looked at sort of trade-offs and people's preferences and things like that. But I think that it's worth a broader look.
I think the challenge with those every year is unique, like we're seeing next year. So it does get.
But our calendar tends to go longer than most other districts. So are there ways that we can sort of mitigate that? And that's kind of the question. And there are way too many thorny issues in there, but that's what we're here for.
Great. Okay. Moving on to new business. I think we all got an email from a student here in Holliston. Forgive me if I've pronounced this wrong, Angaj Pillai, who is part of Mass Audubon's statewide Youth Climate Leadership Program. And they were contacting us they are looking for support for the climate literacy education bill. And they have submitted a letter that they would like us to send to our legislators in support of this bill that would help bring climate education into the classroom. And I just wanted to hear anyone's thoughts and see if this is something we want to send off, if we support the letter. The letter's in the folder as well. Let's see, where did I put
So I had a chance to kind of peruse the House and Senate bills, and it wasn't totally clear whether the bills would replace or supplement existing courses. Will this be integrated with the existing courses, or will there be additional coursework that students will need to take? Do we know?
I don't know. That's a great question.
I mean, it might be I don't know if Dr. Menard knows anything about this.
I do not know. No,
Okay.
sorry.
This is the first we're hearing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
So I think I support this letter in general, and I think, but I unfortunately didn't get a chance to read. I think there's a few things that I might want to clean up a little bit, and then I'd also kind of like to give the administration an opportunity to sort of get some more information about what the bill means.
I did not read the bills yet.
And then maybe we can vote on it next meeting.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Forward
there's a
to you.
fund that's going to be created as well, but it's not entirely clear if it's going to be fully funded or if the district's going to have to put some money up as well. So
You might want to clarify with Principal Liz the questions you asked, because we were not aware, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what his plans are.
But just to be clear, that's not a lack of support for this. It's just.
And then the logistics of how you'd get there would have to take.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so we can put this on the agenda for next and do a little more research and understanding on it.
I really appreciate students reaching out
Yes.
with different ideas
That's great.
that were things that they're working on and stuff like that. So definitely encourage that.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so the next item under new business is to appoint liaisons for negotiations with the nurses.
So I think Frank and Sarah would be great. Frank, you got to get in there,
I'll throw my hat in.
Okay, sounds good.
It usually work better with you though, Dan.
Do you want to do it?
Everyone works well with Sarah.
I know. I'm saying.
Sarah can even work well with me. That takes a lot.
In that case, I could be the good guy, and you're not.
You definitely won't be the good guy with me.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
All good.
So anyway, I will make a motion to appoint Sarah and Frank as liaisons for the nurse unit negotiations.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Yep, that passes. And we've already done the vote for the budget.
Yep, we got everything covered. Just to remind people, so
Yes.
you'll go over when our next meeting is, but at our next meeting will be our budget hearing.
Yep.
So that is the opportunity for the public to come ask questions, share concerns, things they love about the budget, generally not, but so generally it's poorly attended, but please come out and
The opportunities there.
let us know. And then obviously before that is the office hours.
Yeah, in the office hours, obviously, budget, the MSBA process, it's an open office hours for any topics that you may have. And I will also ask for anyone to join me at Rushford if you're interested.
Maybe. And then on 331, anyway, on 331 is the is our meeting with the Finance Committee to present the budget to them. Obviously, the budget subcommittee members will be there, but all committee members are invited if they would like. It's on Zoom.
Do you want to post? Are we posting for?
We could, or it's already sort of on their agenda that we're meeting with them. But
Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Okay. Anything else? No. Great. Okay. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Our next meeting is March 26th.
Our next meeting is March 26th. And I will
Motion to adjourn.
entertain a motion to adjourn. Roll call vote?
Nope.
No. All in favor? There we go. Good night, Holliston.